Hey guys, how's it going? We're back with another review today. I wasn't sure if I wanted to release this video as a review or if I wanted to do it as a segment of Shutter Chatter, because we're not going to be taking a look at this camera statistically. We're not going to be breaking it down in terms of all of the specs and the image quality, though I do want to tap on that a little bit, and I'll touch on both those things quickly. But what this video is really about is about photography, and it's about a camera that I think really goes back to the roots of photography and isn't about having the fastest operating camera with the largest megapixels and the biggest sensor and the fanciest whatever. It's about a camera that reflects the photographer's ability. And I think that's something that we're losing with all of these new cameras coming out and all this technology superseding itself and so on and so on. Anyway, I'm sure you've seen it. There's been so many newer cameras released that I wanted to just do something that was interesting to look at, just as a camera. So what we're going to be taking a look at is the Fuji XT1. It was very recently superseded by the XT2, and I did want to get my hands on the XT2, but unfortunately I couldn't. But the XT1 is still a really awesome and really interesting camera. So yeah, let's quickly breeze over these statistics so that we can get into the more important part of this video, and that's what it feels like to shoot with the camera, and I guess the sort of images that you can expect to get with this really awesome piece of equipment. Alright, so what we're looking at is a 16 megapixel CMOS APS-C sensor. So it's crop frame, it's not full frame, and a lot of people are like, oh, it's not full frame, I'm not going to be able to get the depth of field that I want, and so on and so on. But seriously, it's available. There's a 56mm 1.2, I think, for this camera, so if you really want that razor focus, you can get it. It's also capable of 8 frames of continuous shooting and has some really interesting inbuilt color profiles. So I'm just going to switch this guy on so I can read them out to you, but I've mostly been shooting on, where were we? The classic chrome option. So for me, that feels a little bit more like what I'm used to being a video photographer, a videographer. Basically, I'm used to a bit more of a desaturated look, so anybody who's shot in S-Log or Log-C, you'll know that slightly desaturated is kind of the way that those images come out, and that's kind of how I like to shoot. But the other options that are on there include Astia, Velvia, and Provia, as well as a couple of monochrome and black and white options. Now, a lot of people are saying that Velvia produces the best color depth and the best contrast. I've had a look at it. It seems a little oversaturated for me. But for anybody who's shot old school film, all of that stuff, it's going to look very, very similar and quite flattering on the skin. So yeah, it's a pretty cool one. If you get a chance to get your hands on it, definitely give that a try. Now, another thing to mention is that you are going to be able to shoot RAW on this camera. Now, this is a very user, I guess, they took the user in mind, basically, is what I'm trying to say. They set it out so that it was very manual, and by adding RAW, they've given you this extra, I guess, ability to go in and edit your footage, edit your pictures. I wouldn't shoot too much video on this camera, to be perfectly honest. It's definitely more of a stills camera, but it's given you the option to go away and to be able to edit your photos even further in Photoshop and Lightroom and really push the color and the contrast and the saturation and so on to achieve these really interesting and unique looks, which I think really is what this camera is all about. It's about trying something new and being really deliberate with what you're doing, and yeah, we'll get onto that in a sec. So while using this camera, I really felt like it was designed to be an extension of the photographer. So from the get-go, just taking a look at the body, you can see that there are a lot of manual functions and buttons and wheels and things on the body that allow you to very easily change those settings, not as quickly as, say, my 6D. Like, I can look down the viewfinder of my 6D and I can change my shutter speed and my aperture without having to take a look at the camera body, which I think is good for if you're doing like corporate stuff and you need to be really quick. But for this sort of camera, being able to set my settings up before I went in to take my photo. So what I basically do is I'd set my ISO looking at the back screen, which is quite large. It's a flip screen, an oscillating screen, sorry. So you can kind of tilt that to help with glare and things. And I'd get my exposure relatively close there, and then I'd use this massive OLED viewfinder on the back, which is amazing to look through, by the way. It's just such a wide field of view. It feels really natural to shoot through. But yeah, I'd set up my exposure that way, and then just as I'm about to shoot, I would change my shutter speed to kind of balance out if there's any light flicker or anything like that. But yeah, it kind of forced me to set up my settings before I went in to take my images, which was something I wasn't particularly used to, but it felt really honest that way, you know, like it felt like I was taking an image and I wasn't just relying on the camera, it was coming from my own knowledge. So that was something that I really loved about using this camera. So apart from all that, you're going to have 6 programmable buttons that you can kind of set up to do just about anything on the camera. And the cool thing about that is a lot of people were saying that it wasn't very easy to change your focus points and things on the older Fuji models, and they really just went ahead and shoved it in your face and said, guys, we've fixed the issue, because there's a button just on the front right here which you can program to change between different focus types. So yeah, I think that's one really good thing about Fuji as well, is that they really listen to the people that are using their equipment. And for guys like Canon and Nikon who are pumping out so many different cameras and not, I guess, fixing up these really basic things that people have been asking for a long time, it's good to see that Fuji is being really fresh and that they're actually taking into consideration the feedback that they're getting. Okay, so I've pulled up a couple of the images that I shot yesterday, and I'm just going to go through a couple of things that I noticed just from shooting those. So the first one I wanted to take a look at was this one here. I'd literally just arrived at the train station and I was like, damn, that's kind of cool, that texture. And I just wanted to point out that this has really great details in the blacks. Now, when shooting at higher ISO, I found that the grain was quite intense, but it was like a filmic grain. It wasn't like a digital grain, which I thought was really interesting. And the dynamic range was great. Like from the white of my shoes to, you know, the black of this matte. I mean, my jeans have clipped basically. They've lost detail because they're a bit darker, but even down into these shadows you can see a bit of detail. So I thought that was really cool, and texturally it was a really cool image as well, with, you know, the different colors along the matte and these little white flecks. So I thought that was kind of cool, little thing to throw into this one as well. The other thing I wanted to say, for those of you who have been complaining about depth of field, this was shot with the 18 to 55mm lens. Now, I don't want to say that this is as shallow as it gets, because this actually isn't. This is around about an f3 shot, I believe, at 55mm. So, you know, if you're rocking that 56mm 1.2, you're going to get even more shallow than this. So stop complaining about it being a crop frame camera and not being able to get depth of field, because you definitely can. The next shot that I wanted to show you was the set that we were using. Basically, it was a big green screen. We had a couple of little diffusion kind of homemade-y rigs on the side here, just evenly lighting at the front. So I just wanted to show that even though we're shooting in this big green room with lots of green color throw, there isn't a lot of green on our talent. It actually preserved the color really quite well. So props to Fuji for that. You guys have done a really good job. Again, these were all in a more desaturated filmic setting, I guess. So they're going to be a little bit desaturated all the way through. The next image that I wanted to show you guys was this one here. I think it shows that skin tone thing a little bit better. So these were just set at about 3200 Kelvin, producing a really warm glow on these guys. And I guess it produces this really nice skin tone. Like, I was really happy to see that even on the back here, where we're closer to the green screen, that there hasn't been a lot of that green bleed, which does come down a bit to the lighting. For those of you guys who have done a little bit of studio lighting, it does come down to the lighting a bit. But mostly this image is the Fuji, so well done to them. I found that it was relatively sharp. We're not going to do a lens review or go pixel peeping on these images at all, but it is relatively sharp. There's a really great dynamic range. There's an option for 100, 200, and 400% dynamic range. And I mean, I didn't play with those enough to kind of figure out what they were. If anybody does know, please leave them in the comments, because I was stumped by it. But the dynamic range, the color contrast, I was really happy with it. I think they produce a really nice natural image. So yeah, moving on. Then we've got this. Sorry, I kind of weirdly cropped my screen. I was just using Photo Viewer rather than Photoshop because I only shot in JPEG for these, by the way. I didn't want to get into RAW because that's a whole new kettle of fish. But yeah, you can see a little bit of green bleed here, but all in all, great dynamic range and great color. By the way, shout out, this is an awesome bloke that I've done some work with. Colin, he's helped me out on a couple of shoots that we've done recently. We're actually using his camera for this shoot, an A7S Mark II. But yeah, really cool guy. Thanks for letting me borrow your gear and being awesome at what you do, man. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of image quality. Obviously using different lenses is going to give you different results in terms of sharpness and things like that. But generally speaking, that's what you can kind of expect in terms of color and your dynamic range and things. Alright guys, there you have it, Fuji's XT1 in a nutshell. Now if you guys have any other questions about the camera or about the images that I've taken, if you've got any comments, anything constructive, drop it down below. I'm also going to add a link to the camera on Ted's website so that you can check out the price and a couple of little stats because I did skim over that pretty quickly. But yeah, all in all, that's it for today guys. Catch you on the next one. Alright guys, thanks again for tuning in. If you liked that video, leave us a like. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you want to see more, click the link on the left, it'll take you to the Canon G5X review. And as always guys, keep on chilling.